Hello, my name is Darrell E. Jr. I'm in grade 10. For my project, I wanted to see if I can make a self-driving car using Raspberry Pi.
When I thought about this project, I wanted to make a car because, well, I like cars. I also got inspired by the Mars rover that just landed a few months ago. So I wanted to create something like that, but smaller.
Now I'm going to go over what a Raspberry Pi is. Raspberry Pi is a small computer that uses the Raspberry Pi OS, or which used to be called Raspbian Pi. And it's basically a small computer that you can run virtual machines on and code on.
So another part of my project was the code for the Raspberry Pi to do what I wanted to do. I use the language Python, which can be used for many different things because of all of its libraries that is built into it that you could call. The library that I used in Python for this project was GPIO0. I use this because it allows me to use the GPIO pins on the Raspberry Pi to control the motors. To code, I use the MU as my Python ID, and IDE stands for Integrated Development Environment. IDEs make it easier to code in because it gives you different tools and syntax errors to help you. If I did not have this, I would have had to create my own environment, which is kind of complicated. So here is my code that I use for my car. In coding, you must import the library that we want to use. So as I said before, we use GPIO0. So we import that. Then we must call our variables, and our variables are our motors. So we make that and show what pin they are in. So basically, the first number I put with the motor is going to make the motor spin forward, and the other will make it spin backward. So when we call motor 1 dot forward, it will put power through the first pin, and so on. Now I'm going to talk about the different parts that I use for my car other than the Raspberry Pi and how I built my car. The motors that I used for my car was the DC geared motors. When I added that to my chassis, I had to solder wires to it so that I could plug that into the motor driver. Then to run the motors, I have to have a motor driver because you cannot run motors straight from the Raspberry Pi. The Raspberry Pi can't handle the amount of power that we need to power the motors. Then I also needed an extra battery pack and a power bank to run the Raspberry Pi when it is not plugged into the wall or computer. The chassis of the car looks like this. It came in a pack that had everything I need to make it. It has cylinders to hold it up and holes so I could screw in things. And so this is what my car looks like right now. So, what's next for this project if I were to continue? Well, I could have made the car self-driving or control it by a remote. That's really the next steps to make this project better. But yeah, that's it. Thank you for watching my video. Hope you enjoyed this video on the car that I made.